The air was heavy with tension as Zhou Gong Dan sat in the command tent, staring intently at the message detailing Zhao Han's capture. The words seemed to burn into his mind, filling him with a mix of regret and determination. Zhao Han had been brash, yes, but he was also loyal and full of potential. Losing him to the Shang forces was not just a personal loss. It was a blow to the morale of the Zhou army. Jiang Xia entered the tent, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a rare expression of concern. "Duke Zhou," he said, using the honorific title. "The men are growing restless. The news of Zhao Han's capture has spread faster than we anticipated. If we don't act soon, their resolve may falter."
Zhou Gong Dan nodded,
his gaze never leaving the map spread before him. "I know," he replied, his voice firm, "but we cannot act out of desperation. A hasty decision will cost us more lives. We must find a way to turn this setback into an advantage." Jiang Xia observed him for a moment before speaking again. "I have heard whispers that King Zhou plans to use Zhao Han as leverage, to sow fear among our ranks or to lure you into a trap." Zhou Gong Dan's eyes narrowed. "Then we must be prepared. If King Zhou believes he can manipulate us, we will make him believe he has succeeded." In the sprawling palace of King Zhou,
Zhou Han knelt before the tyrant,
his wrists bound in heavy iron chains. The Shang king, draped in silks and adorned with golden ornaments, lounged on his throne, his cruel eyes studying his captive like a predator sizing up its prey. "So," King Zhou began, his voice dripping with mockery, "you are the fearless Zhao Han, one of Zhou Gong Dan's finest warriors. Tell me, does your so-called lord weep for you now? Or has he abandoned you as a pawn in his little game?" Zhao Han, though bruised and battered, lifted his head high. "You can say whatever you want, tyrant, but Zhou Gong Dan will not fall for your schemes. He will crush you, and your throne of decadence will burn to ash." King Zhou laughed, a deep and menacing sound that echoed through the grand hall. "Such loyalty," he sneered, "but loyalty will not save you. Perhaps you will sing a different tune after you watch your people suffer." He turned to one of his ministers, an opportunistic advisor named Xian Luo, who had been whispering strategies into the king's ear for years. "Send word to Zhou Gong Dan," the king ordered. "Tell him that if he values this dog's life, he will bring himself to my feet and kneel before me. Otherwise, I will send Zhao Han's severed head back to him." When the Shang messenger arrived at the Zhou camp bearing the king's terms, the soldiers' outrage was immediate. Cries for revenge filled the air, and some even demanded an immediate assault on the Shang stronghold. But Zhou Gong Dan silenced the crowd with a single gesture. "Calm yourselves," he said, his voice steady but commanding. "This is exactly what King Zhou wants. He seeks to divide us, to weaken our resolve through anger and fear. We will not give him the satisfaction." He turned to Jiang Xia and a few of his most trusted commanders. "Gather in the war room. We have much to discuss." Once inside the safety of the command tent, Zhou Gong Dan laid out his thoughts. "King Zhou believes we are desperate to save Zhao Han. And he is right. Our men will not rest until their comrade is safe. But this is also our opportunity. If King Zhou is so eager to lure us into his trap, we will turn it against him." Jiang Xia's eyes gleamed with understanding. "You propose a counter-trap?" "Exactly," Zhou Gong Dan replied. "We will send a small force to feign surrender, as if accepting his terms. Meanwhile, our main forces will position themselves around the Shang stronghold. When the time is right, we will strike." One of the younger commanders hesitated. "But, my lord, what if the feint is discovered? The men we send will be walking into certain death." Zhou Gong Dan's expression softened, though his resolve remained unshaken. "I will lead the feint myself." The room erupted in protest, with Jiang Xia being the most vocal. "My lord, you cannot risk your life in such a manner. If you fall, the Zhou army will lose its heart. Allow me to go in your place." Zhou Gong Dan shook his head. "No, Xia. This mission requires more than bravery. It requires precision and persuasion. King Zhou must believe that I am truly surrendering. If he even senses deception, the plan will fail. Under the cover of night, Zhou Gong Dan and a small contingent of soldiers approached the Shang stronghold. Each man was carefully chosen, loyal, skilled, and willing to lay down his life for the greater cause. As they neared the gates, Zhou Gong Dan ordered the soldiers to raise a white flag, signaling their supposed surrender. The Shang guards, though suspicious, allowed them entry. Inside, Zhou Gong Dan was brought before King Zhou, who lounged arrogantly on his golden throne. The tyrant's laughter echoed through the hall as he saw the famed strategist kneel before him. "So, the great Zhou Gong Dan has finally bowed to me," King Zhou said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Tell me, how does it feel to admit defeat?" Zhou Gong Dan kept his expression calm, though his mind raced. "I have come to plead for the life of my officer, Zhaohan. His bravery is unmatched, and I cannot allow him to perish needlessly." King Zhou smirked, clearly relishing the sight of his adversary in a position of humility. "And what will you offer me in return? Your loyalty? Your army?" Zhou Gong Dan hesitated deliberately, as if weighing his options. "I will offer you my knowledge," he said finally. "The strategies I have used to win countless battles can be yours, if you spare Zhaohan." King Zhou leaned back, clearly intrigued. "You intrigue me, Zhou Gong Dan. Very well, I will consider your offer. Guards, take him to the dungeons. Let him stew while I decide his fate." As Zhou Gong Dan was led away, he subtly glanced around the fortress, memorizing every detail: the placement of guards, the structure of the walls, the location of the dungeons. He knew that every piece of information could be the key to their escape. Meanwhile, outside the Shang stronghold, Jiang Zia and the Zhou forces had taken their positions, hidden in the forests and hills surrounding the fortress. They waited for the signal. Zhou Gong Dan had promised that he would find a way to alert them when the time was right. Inside the dungeons, Zhou Gong Dan finally reunited with Zhaohan, who was shocked to see his leader in chains. "My lord, why are you here? You should have left me to my fate." Zhou Gong Dan smiled faintly. "I am here to ensure that your fate is one of freedom, not death, but you must trust me and follow my lead." Over the next several hours, Zhou Gong Dan quietly orchestrated a daring plan to escape the dungeons and signal the Zhou forces. He used his keen intellect to manipulate the guards, sowing confusion and doubt among them. At the same time, he passed coded messages to Jiang Zia through a captured Shang soldier who had secretly turned loyal to the Zhou cause. When the appointed hour arrived, Zhou Gong Dan and Zhaohan made their move. With the help of their men, they overpowered the guards and set fire to a section of the fortress, a prearranged signal to the Zhou army. From the hills, Jiang Zia saw the flames rise and shouted, "The time has come! Attack!" The Zhou forces descended upon the Shang fortress like a tidal wave. The Shang soldiers, already disoriented by the fire and Zhou Gong Dan's deception, were caught completely off guard. Chaos erupted as Zhou warriors stormed the gates, their battle cries filling the air. In the heart of the fortress, Zhou Gong Dan and Zhaohan fought side by side, cutting through waves of enemies. The bond between them had been forged in the fires of adversity, and together they became an unstoppable force. By dawn, the Shang stronghold had fallen. King Zhou managed to escape, but his forces were in shambles, and his reputation as an invincible ruler was shattered. As the Zhou soldiers cheered their victory, Zhou Gong Dan stood silently, his gaze fixed on the horizon. He knew the war was far from over, but this triumph was a turning point. It proved that even the mightiest tyrants could be brought to their knees by the courage and unity of those who fought for justice.